I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the well-run suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. This conflict like it's water, still this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers to give out.
Politics and sinners, they all the same. Got me stuck in this endless game, but I won't give up,
won't play the role.
Gotta do what's best
for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free. God keep on watching over me. Take my pleas and keep the receipts. I just want all of humanity.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And we're talking about smoke, screens, and scandals. The truth they don't want you to see. But before we get into all that, I got this morning, Belly Gang Cushington. Don't do it. And we'll be right back right after this.
Buying on the beat. I hear a little voice in the back of my head like baby, don't do it. Hey, she be like, baby, my mama had told me don't do it. I put it on pause, I ended up broke. I put the bricks in the back of the Buick, I run from the laws, hit it to the floor. I put my hustle in front of my bitch and it starting to fall. I'm losing my hope. I put the phone on speaker like damn, I put in my all. I'm losing my hope. Baby, don't do it. Baby, don't do it. I go to the hood, get this paper, run through it. I scam in the bank with a fake and withdrew it. I caught me a case and I can't go to Truist. I caught me a lick and I put on my hood and I robbed me a nigga. I got on my bullet, count on this paper. I got addicted to taking, man. I tried to stop it, I couldn't. Yeah, I got addicted to drugs. I wasn't taking them, I got addicted to talking to plugs. I like a bitch who a good girl, addicted to talking to thugs. I like a lawyer who come in the courtroom, he ready to argue, he got on the mug. I was on 23-hour lockdown, I got addicted to talking to bugs. They were my friends, I swear to God if I beat the little case, I'ma stop it, I'm never gon' pop it again. I'ma put down all the scares and the drugs, I swear that I'm never gon' shop it again. I'ma put down all the bells and the plugs, nigga, I swear to God I put that on my kid, yeah. Ay, my mama had told me don't do it, I put it on pause, I ended up broke. I put the bricks in the back of the Buick, I run from the laws, hit it to the floor. I put my hustle in front of my bitch and it starting to fall, I'm losing my hope. I put the phone on speaker like damn, I put in my all, I'm losing my hope, I'm losing my hope. Ay, baby, don't do it, I go to the hood, get this paper, run through it. I scam in the bank with a fake and withdrew it. I caught me a case and I can't go to Truist. I caught me a lick and I put on my hood and I robbed me a nigga. I got on my bullet, count on this paper. I got addicted to taking, man. I tried to stop it, I couldn't. Don't do it. I tried to stop it, I couldn't. Baby, don't do it.
Belly Gang. Baby, don't do it. Said he was talking to bugs. Everybody don't know what that means. This morning I want to get into a little bit, we're going to talk about some real shit, you know what I'm saying? But I want to talk about, and I want to show you guys the fraud committee, right? I want to educate people and I want people to understand. So with that being said, I want to get into the fraud and oversight committee, and you're going to hear Aaron Campbell, and they're talking about the COVID funds that were released and how they were spent. Is there still money there? So with that being said, here is the Fraud and Oversight Committee.
Today on the funds the state received in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm proud to report that both the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the American Rescue Plan received unmodified opinions or clean audit reports for our single audit for all years to date, with no material weaknesses or required repayments. More recently, I'm especially grateful for our team's efforts to help Minnesota townships complete final reporting and avoid returning nearly $1.5 million to the U.S. Treasury. This spring marks 5 years since the initial response efforts began here in Minnesota and have since claimed the lives of more than 17,000 Minnesotans and over 1 million Americans. From emergency health measures to economic stabilization, every level of government was called on to act quickly, decisively, and at an unprecedented scale. You will see more than $76 billion in federal funds came to Minnesota in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. $13 billion of this went through our state government.
That's crazy.
This presentation is intended as a broad overview of the pandemic-related funds that came to Minnesota and will be followed by a deeper dive on unemployment insurance from this time. At the committee's interest, additional agency-specific presentations could follow at a future hearing. With that, I'd invite our State Budget Director, Anna Mingy, to continue with the presentation.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Anna Mingy, Assistant Commissioner and State Budget Director with Minnesota Management and Budget. As the Commissioner noted, I'm here today to provide an overview of the federal funding the state has received in response to COVID-19. So to sort of level set the universe of funding that we generally consider when we talk about federal COVID funds, we're largely talking about funding appropriated in 5 bills passed by Congress that have provided funds to states to respond to COVID. I'm going to walk through them fairly quickly without going into significant detail about their contents, but to give you a sort of refresh all of our memories and give an overview of the sort of timing of events. The first bill, the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplemental Appropriations Bill, passed on March 6, 2020. The bill was relatively small, providing $8.3 billion in emergency funds, focusing largely on public health response. Later in March, Congress passed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which provided paid sick leave, tax credits, and free COVID-19 testing. It expanded food assistance and unemployment, and increased Medicaid funding. The bulk of the funding that the state has received, however, has been from the last 3 bills on this list. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, more commonly referred to as the CARES Act, was a $2 trillion stimulus bill. It provided loans and grants to businesses, expanded unemployment aid, provided direct payments to families, supported healthcare providers, and provided funding to state and local governments. Then in December of 2020, the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, which is also known as the Consolidated Appropriations Act, passed and provided about $900 million for pandemic-related economic relief. This included about $325 billion for small businesses, $166 billion for additional stimulus payments, funding for increased UI benefits, schools and universities, vaccines, and many other programs. And finally, the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, passed in March of 2021 with an estimate of about $1.9 trillion. It contained a variety of funding for economic relief, education, public health, and local government. So with that backdrop, then let's pivot to how much money did Minnesota receive through these COVID relief bills. This slide provides an overview of all of the federal funds flowing into Minnesota through these federal relief bills, dividing those dollars into what came to state government for administration versus those that flowed directly to other recipients. This information comes from an organization called Federal Funds Information.
So that's millions.
Or FFIS. And in total, FFIS estimates that Minnesota will receive about $76 billion in federal COVID relief funding. Of that, $13 billion has come to the state government, while about $63 billion has flowed to other recipients.
Damn.
We'll discuss more of the state programs in detail, but I wanted to highlight some notable funding provided to other recipients.
76 billion.
So
For
of
sure.
the 63 billion, you can see the line labeled economic assistance, and that's about 52 million, or almost 80% of the money flowing to non-state recipients. This includes about $17 billion for the Paycheck Protection
Okay,
Program,
PPP loans.
which was a federal program implemented by the Small Business
Right.
Administration. It allowed businesses to apply for a low-interest loan, which was partially or fully forgiven if a business kept employee counts and wages stable. Also in that $52 billion for economic assistance funding to other recipients is about $14 billion in economic impact payments, what we commonly think of as stimulus payments. There were 3 rounds from the CARES Act, the CRISA, and ARPA.
Right.
And then another notable funding stream flowing outside of state government, you can see on the Health and Human Services line,
Yeah.
was about $2.2 billion provided to healthcare providers through a funding stream known as the Provider Relief Fund.
Wow.
So with that, and I think the remainder of my presentation will focus largely on the funds flowing to state government. Looking at the graph on slide, the image on slide 4, you can see
Again, these
that,
are in millions.
the relative distribution of the funds that the state has received. About 3.9 billion of the total has been received through some flexible funding mechanisms.
Right.
Specifically, the Coronavirus Relief Fund from the CARES Act
So she's talking
and the
about
State
this.
Fiscal Recovery Fund
Bro.
from the American Rescue Plan. Health and Human Services is the next
3.8
largest category
billion.
of spending, roughly 3.8 billion. The largest items in that category of funds are over $2 billion in enhanced Medicaid matching funds, and then, not surprisingly, significant public health funding to
Right.
support the response to COVID-19.
Damn. Definitely
So
didn't do
with that
that.
overview,
Gotta
now
go
I'm
cell
going to
phone.
walk through some of the larger funding streams incorporated in these numbers, starting with our flexible resources. As you just saw, flexible funds have played a significant role in the state's COVID response. The first allocation of flexible funds came to the state through the
Education.
Coronavirus Relief Fund. Minnesota received $2.2 billion in the Coronavirus Relief Fund through the CARES Act.
Okay.
Of that, 1.16 billion went to local governments,
Yeah.
and just over $1 billion came to the state. So in order for an expenditure to be an eligible use of the Coronavirus Relief Fund, or as an abbreviation, the CRF, it needed to be a necessary expenditure incurred due to the public health emergency, but not previously budgeted for by the state. The table here illustrates how we spent the state's allocation. Almost a quarter of our award funded activities to support education during the pandemic. There was also significant spending for testing, support for at-risk populations, business relief, and other response activities. There is
Childcare
much
is
more
big.
information about the state's CRF spending available on
146.
MMB's website. We have both summary reports as well as the request forms that were submitted to the Legislative Advisory Commission for review. And in terms of timeline, the CRF was really for activities from March of 2020 through the end of calendar year 2022. So then the next source of flexible funds received by the state was the American Rescue Plan State Fiscal Recovery Fund on slide 6. The State Fiscal Recovery Fund allows for broad uses, including revenue replacement, for expenditures obligated between March of 2021 and December of 2024. Notably, the funds couldn't be used for tax cuts, debt service, or pensions, or as the state match to draw down some other federal funds. For example, we couldn't use state fiscal recovery funds as the state match for a Medicaid expenditure. Minnesota received $2.8 billion, and of that, $2.3 billion, roughly 80%, was appropriated by the legislature to replenish the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund.
That's a lot of
Due to
money.
significant layoffs early in the COVID-19 pandemic, the state's UI Trust Fund relied on an advance from the federal government to continue operations and benefits. Generally, the fund is replenished through increases in taxes and assessments paid into the UI Trust Fund, but through this federal funding and an additional general fund appropriation replenishing the fund and paying back federal advances, the state avoided some of those increased costs to employers. The state also, the remainder of the $2.8 billion was appropriated from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund for COVID immediate response through a mechanism named in state law the COVID-19 Flexible Response Account, which paid for things like summer learning, emergency healthcare staffing, workforce stabilization, and childcare. And similar to the CRF, we have many reports on our website laying out the allocations from the COVID Flexible Response Account. So in addition to state government, local governments also receive significant flexible funds totaling about $3.3 billion. About $1.4 billion of that was allocated to cities and towns, and about $1.9 billion has gone to counties. Now, pivoting back to the funding that the state has received, as you saw in the earlier slides, education was a significant area of federal investment. About $2.1 billion of the total has come to the state through two programs known by their acronyms as ESSER and GEAR. ESSER stands for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. It was about $2.1 billion that came to the state, and of that, 90% was formula funds distributed to districts based on Title I allocations, and the remaining 10% was allocated in state grants. The funding went towards activities that addressed learning loss as a result of the pandemic, as well as funds to respond to COVID-19, including maintenance of operations and staffing. Things like COVID response, training staff on sanitation, sanitation supplies, planning for closure, education technology, mental health supports, and things like improving air quality systems. MDE also had some flexibility over that remaining 10%, and some of the ways that they allocated flexible funds included after-school programs, summer enrichment, multi-tiered systems of support for schools, expanding rigorous coursework, and public engagement with schools. In addition, Minnesota received $105 million through the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Program, commonly referred to by its acronym of GEAR, which has been used to provide school-aged care, technology access, mental health training, and response.
Had a big budget.
So in addition to significant education funding, the state has received significant funds to support the child care sector. The Department of Human Services received about $720 million in child care specific funds, and 709 of that came through two large grant programs. The first I'd highlight is $324 million in child care stabilization funds. These funds supported provider stabilization and workforce development grants, as well as training programs and other provider supports. The remainder came through increases to the Child Care Development Block Grant. The Child Care Development Block Grant, sometimes called CCDBG, is an ongoing funding source that the state receives from the federal government. However, in COVID, we received sort of a bump up in the amount of funds that we received.
Right. And
this increase was used.
now, hold on. I want to talk about that for a minute, right? Because I don't think a lot of people understand what that meant, right? Or what that means. These are a lot of programs that because of COVID, there was extra funding, right? So they were able, different providers of childcare were able to pay their employees more to cover the costs of, the consumer, the clients, whatever you want to call them, the kids, because there was a lot of people that can't afford, childcare. But then also you got to be able to afford to pay your workers. And that's what we're going to really see a lot of drop. And people aren't talking about that. And it's wild to me is because, I know people that work in, childcare, and they don't understand, maybe they do and maybe they don't understand what's going down or what's happening, because a lot of money that they were able to survive on are getting rid of. And it's not anything that has to do with their work ethic. It doesn't have anything to do with how they work. It's just political world. And to be honest, Democrats spent a lot of money, and I'm going to say Democrats, right? They spent a lot of money the last biennium, and there's a lot of things that we can't afford. because in my eyes, if people weren't using money fraudulently and wasting the money, we would have had money to take care of these programs. And now, because we don't have this money, right? Now you're going to start seeing people suffering. And again, like I've been saying, is like people need to start paying attention because there's a lot going on in our Senate, in our House, even with the president when it comes down to his executive orders, when it comes down to, this tariffs, and we're seeing a stock market crash. I just had I don't mean to be putting her business out here or whatever, but I won't say the amount, but my mom lost in the stock market. She was sitting there telling me about that, and I was like, damn. But that's part of the game. You win some and you lose some. The stock market, number one, is a lot of people, it goes off emotions. It goes off of feelings. Because we've all heard about, maybe you haven't, the 2008 financial crisis. There was a lot of shit. What's crazy is I'm talking about that, and I'll get into that after this, but 2008, the financial crisis, a lot of people maybe don't remember what was going on in Chicago because they couldn't even pay all their bills. They had to sell their parking meters to a private and gave them, I think it was a 70-year contract. And so I was over here like, okay, so how does Chicago get out of that contract? How does Chicago do this? How does Chicago do that? And to be honest, Daley, their old mayor of Chicago, fucked them over because there's no way out of that. And to be honest, the parking people who own that have already got their money back 10 times over. So, and they will continue. All the money they get now is profits. There's no paying that $1.15 billion what they paid for it. And then plus they've already, since they've gotten back to the $1 billion, they've made over $500 million in profits. And the crazy thing of it is, a lot of people that don't understand is that the company, part of their headquarters is in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, or whatever the hell they call it. So it's like you're paying for something that you're not getting any benefits from. Your parking meters go up. What comes to the city because they pay in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we have to look at shit. Just the same thing that's going on in Minnesota. People are talking about the soybeans. We don't know. I'm hoping that there's some companies in America that will pay for the soybeans, that will give a fair price, that makes the worth the farmers wow. Because yesterday I seen people, well, not yesterday, Saturday, they were already tilling the fields, already tilled and groomed, or whatever the hell they want to call them. So yeah, but get back into this Fraud and Oversight Policy Committee.
Rates in the Child Care Assistance Program to make grants to providers and buy down the wait list for the basic sliding fee program. I'd highlight that in addition to these child care specific funds, Minnesota has used over $125 million of our flexible funds to support the child care industry.
Wow. So they still have money. It's that, what do we do with that money?
We have also received a significant amount of federal funding to support public health response. These activities largely conducted within the Department of Health.
And everything was done fraudulently.
$983 million in federal funds was awarded to Minnesota from a variety of federal funding bills. It paid for things like community and school testing, vaccine preparedness, and local and state public health capacity building. Minnesota has also been awarded, we also spent $193 million of the Coronavirus Relief Fund and $75 million from our ARPA flexible allocation. So those are our two big flexible pots for COVID testing and vaccine response. FEMA has also funded vaccination, contact tracing, testing, and other response for over $300 million.
Damn.
This is sort of an evolving area of our COVID funds. While most of our funds have been spent, there is some that under the terms of the legislation and the award, there is extended ability to spend, and some of the CDC grants have the ability to be spent through June of 2026. However, on March 25th of this year, just a couple weeks ago, we were notified by the federal government that about more than $220 million of those grants would be canceled effective immediately. The Department of Health had to take some really immediate measures to stop spending of those dollars. There is currently a temporary restraining order against that grant cancellation. However, we are monitoring the situation closely to understand how it will play out. The final sort of specific funding stream that I wanted to share with you all is some enhanced Medicaid match, because that represents some of the most significant funding that flowed to the state as a result of these COVID funding bills. First is a 6.2 enhanced federal matching rate for state medical assistance, otherwise called MA, which is our Medicaid program, for spending from January of 2020 through March of 2023, which then was followed by a gradual phase down for April through December of 2023. The match came with requirements to not disenroll individuals except in specific circumstances. So in total, the state received about $2.9 billion in this enhanced 6.2% match, but the costs of what we call the continuous coverage provisions of not disenrolling folks was about $1.4 billion, resulting in a net savings of about $1.5 billion from fiscal year 2020 through 2025. There was another enhanced Medicaid matching rate in the American Rescue Plan Act, which provided a 10% increase on federal matching rate for home and community-based services from April 1st of 2021 to March 31st of 2022. States were required to use these dollars to expand, strengthen, or enhance HCBS services during the time period of April 1st, 2021 through March 31st of 2024. Minnesota received about $667 million through this provision, and the state reinvested this amount in services and supports. It funded a combination of rate increases, service expansions, and supports to people to live in their own homes, as well as some system reforms. I'd note that for the Home and Community-Based Services FMAP, that 10% bump, the expenditures of those dollars were something that were a part of the 2021 biennial budget. So, worked appropriated by the legislature and directed by the legislature. So like all federal funds, federal COVID funds are included in the single audit every year. MMB has served as the lead agency on the audit of the two large flexible funds, the ARPA State Fiscal Recovery and the Coronavirus Relief Fund. As you heard from the Commissioner, we have received clean audit reports for both of these programs in all years, and no material weaknesses in internal controls were identified. So in preparing for this presentation, we're aware that you are interested in the status of unobligated and unspent COVID funds. As I sort of alluded to earlier, many funds in the COVID funding bills were appropriated with the ability to spend into future years and for uses that were broader than specific COVID response.
That's why you're seeing a lot
All
of
major COVID era grants have been fully obligated with the federal government,
area schools
meaning
with
that there is an
deficits.
agreement with an approved use plan. There are several agencies that are still spending federal COVID funds. I'll discuss some of those on the next slide. But as I mentioned before, in recent weeks, the federal government has canceled some of our existing agreements for work underway at the Department of Human Services and the Department of Health. A court has temporarily blocked the cancellation, but we are monitoring that closely to see how it evolves. I would note, in general, if the federal funding bills that provide funds for a specific purpose dictate the time period they're allowed to be spent on and the allowable activities. If a state agency or a local government or other recipient in this case isn't able to spend all of the funds by the time established in the law, they are returned to the federal government. They don't stay with the state. So as I just mentioned, some COVID funds have the ability to be spent on broader uses for many years into the future. This slide shows the vast majority of funding streams with some ongoing activities, as well as the deadline for spending them. I won't walk through line by line, but I'll highlight a couple. The second line, the Capital Projects Fund, is a federal award being spent across the Department of Education and the Department of Employment and Economic Development. In this case, DEED has significant contracts underway for broadband development, and MDE has almost $50 million in the final stages of grant awards for multipurpose community facility projects, which I believe they anticipate to announce shortly. We also have, on 2 lines down from that, the health line, about $230 million in unspent CDC funds of the Department of Health through the grant program called the Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity Grants, which folks often just call ELC grants. And those are the funds, they were under the law available to be spent through June 30th of 2026. And this is one of the programs where the funding was canceled by the federal government on March 25th of 2025 and is pending temporary restraining order. The cancellation of those MDH grants required MDH to take some immediate actions to stop the work that was underway, including asking grantees to stop their work, as well as issuing layoff notices to about 170 staff. But we are monitoring the legal work there closely. The Human Services line for our Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration block grants had about $30 million unspent but obligated, and in this case, they're also canceled by the federal government on March 25th, but are pending legal action. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to take any questions from the committee.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate it. I have several questions, as my colleagues are already lining up here. I'm just going to start with a couple things that I think will be really quick, and then we'll have a broader conversation. First, in this list on your last slide, page 14, of the COVID grants with unspent funds, could you send us a detailed list of that in each budget area or however it's laid out? I think that would be really helpful to all of us to understand what potential other cuts could be coming if the federal government claws it back early,
Right.
and also what's still unobligated out there. And you know, I think as we're all in budget negotiations and other
Right.
committees, that's
smart.
good information to have. Secondly, on that slide, the Small Business Credit Initiative, it says 97 million was awarded. The first tranche received was 30 million, and of that, 5.9 is unobligated.
Right.
And maybe, you know, when your D colleagues come up, we can have them revisit this as well if it's not your area. But I just wondered what happened to the money that was awarded but not received? Is that still out there somewhere? Because that's a lot of money. Or is that already not in play?
Madam Chair, I see my colleague walking up to the desk.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Devin Bowdry, Government Relations Director. For the State Small Business Credit Initiative, we've received, as it says, the first tranche. And as we spend down, I think once we spend close to like 80% of that first tranche, then we can receive the second. And then same with the third. So we're expecting to receive it in 3 batches.
And you're still expecting to receive it even though the federal emergency is long over and they're taking money back. So you still think that money is coming?
Madam Chair, yes, at this point. For
All
now.
right. Excellent. Thank you. To my colleagues, Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the same vein, I'm trying to get my arms around, maybe it's here and I'm just not seeing it, but are all of the funds that the administration is trying to claw back, of all of those funds, how much of those funds have been both appropriated and obligated? Because it's pretty unprecedented for an administration to claw back funds or not honor grants that have been both appropriated and obligated.
Ms. Bingy.
Madam Chair, Representative Elkins, so the funds that are being clawed back are obligated with the federal government, meaning there is this approved use plan. I would agree that in general, historically, we don't see significant clawbacks of funds where we have, you know, sort of an agreement with the federal government. In our review of sort of past rescissions and impoundment, it's generally before, happens, after congressional appropriation, but before an improvement is signed, which is not to say that cancellation of a federal grant, it has never happened, but this is fairly unusual and unprecedented.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind going back to slide 12, I have another question there.
Slide 12, what is that?
So I appreciate that the audits have been clean, and I think in general, there's been a lot of good work done by the state in a lot of areas, getting the COVID money out the door. But that being said, we also have had unprecedented fraud.
Right, so you're gonna have
Particularly the
clean
Feeding Our
audit.
Future and in
New Way.
child care programs.
Right.
So is any of my understanding was the Feeding Our Future money
Was
was
COVID money.
federal COVID
Right.
money. So how do you square this
How do you
circle?
get clean? Right.
Madam Chair,
That's a good question.
the funds that we're talking about specifically here are those two big flexible pots, the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the ARPA State
You
Fiscal
should really
Recovery
put that in
Funds, the
there.
funds that were within, that were M&B is the lead agency, leads the audit process. And then with the specifics of Feeding Our Future, I defer to sort of others, including my colleagues at the Department of Education. But so
It's
just
all a
that
blame
this is
game.
not
That's crazy. They
comprehensive
just all
list of
pointed
all of the
fingers.
federal grants.
Nobody wants to
I
take
appreciate that
responsibility.
clarification. So just to be very clear, it's a clean audit on the flexible funds that you
Right.
received, but not the broader scope of federal dollars we received. Because in your earlier statement, Commissioner Campbell, I think you said total, we got 1.6 trillion in
Damn.
the state somewhere? What was in your opening line, there was a number I didn't jot down quickly.
Madam Chair, I'm looking to see, so I think you might be talking about the 1.5 million that related to Minnesota townships, complete.
Oh, I don't think so, but
We, in Minnesota, received 76 billion in federal funds, and about 13 billion came through state government. So the single audit, the scope of the single audit does not, it is pretty prescribed, and it doesn't include all of those funds. So when we
Just
speak
the
to the
flexible.
unmodified or clean audit reports for a single audit, that is a, we can get you what the scope is for the single audits, what's included and what's not.
Right.
But it would not include, for instance, Feeding Our Futures. As you
Yeah, they couldn't put that
likely
in
know,
there.
the OLA has
That's
done a
crazy.
number of audits of probably like 6 to 8 audits of various federal funds, COVID era federal funds programs. And so there's also, existing audits in those places.
Right.
Right, thank you. And so this is roughly around the 13 billion that the state received.
Madam Chair, this slide is in reference to, if we think back to slide 4,
Slide 4.
to the biggest block. of
3.8
flexible
billion.
funds, the $4 billion
Right,
managed
4
by
billion.
Minnesota Management and Budget.
Got it.
So that leaves the rest of
Thank
it.
you
Health
so
and
much.
Human Services, education, housing.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So back on page 12, or slide 12, when you say clean audit reports, initially I thought you had the OLA, but who exactly performed those audits for you?
Madam Chair, Representative Rarick, the single audit is prepared by the state auditor.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
Representative Rarick, I would just add that the single audit, we put out for RFP. It used to be done by the OLA. They declined to do that, and so we put it out for an RFP, and the state auditor is the person, the entity
Julia
who
Balaha.
currently has the winning bid for that RFP, and so has done it for the last several years.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, okay, so the state auditors, so let me ask this then. So since the state auditor's jurisdiction is local governments, what's the nexus between these funds that we're talking about on slide 12? Do they all go to local government? Is that, okay, maybe you could just differentiate that for us.
Commissioner Campbell.
Madam Chair, Representative Rarick, in this case, the audit is about, again, we'll get you the scope of what's included in the single audit, but it's state government, federal funds that have been, I think it's state grants. And so grants made with federal funds, and it is not, I would encourage you to not consider the nexus with local government, because it is much broader than that.
Okay.
Alden?
One more question.
Oh, Representative Rarick.
Great, one more question. So back on slide 11, in our work here at the Fraud Committee, we've had quite a bit, and in fact, not even, some of it hasn't even been public yet because we've been talking to whistleblowers almost weekly. Well, I think between the chair and myself, weekly, and a few other members too have been listening in on some whistleblowers within state agencies. And their great concern, one of their great concerns, I'll say, is listed on slide 11, which is the home and healthcare-based services. So we've had multiple whistleblowers concerned about fraudulent activity within those. Can you just tell us about, especially during the COVID era, what was done to prevent fraudulent nonprofits or nonprofit-like entities? We've also heard that there's LLCs that are kind of a shell
DBAs.
that have formed. So can you just tell us about
Doing
those
business as.
kind of stopgaps that you've used on specifically those funds?
Commissioner Campbell or Ms. Mingy, either one.
Chair Robbins and Representative Rarick, I think that we would probably need to follow up with our colleagues at the Department of Human Services.
I hate that
to get you
shit.
that information. I'm not sure that we have that.
See, this is the thing of why I say this committee is really a problem and not really a solution. It does get to
I'm looking
some.
forward to hearing from, again, Ms. Gandhi, so.
So I'm going to stop it there. They do about 2 hours of this every Monday. But I just really thought that it was important for people to see that all that COVID money, that even though they tried to promote it, that it had a clean audit, it really wasn't that way. And that's something that we definitely needed to discuss. That's something that we need to talk about. But with that being said, man, I want to get into clemency, right? Recommended in a possible wrongful conviction. And with that being said, I want to get into this story because a lot of people don't know it, maybe don't understand it, and we need to. So, right, LLC shells. I know, and that's why I wasn't going to bring you on this morning, but I wanted to watch the fraud committee, and then I did a little thing about Minneapolis. So tomorrow I have Robert Johnson on, Crazy Corpsman, and people should be paying attention because we're going to talk about Minneapolis, a big part of it, but it'll be Minnesota as a whole. So people should pay attention if you want to know what's going on with the fraud and oversight in Minnesota.
2 hours ago, a state panel recommended a man the Attorney General's office says is wrongly convicted of murder be freed. Brian Pippett spent the last 26 years in prison, but his release is not a done deal yet. KARE 11 Investigates Lauren Lemanchek explains why.
This is crime scene video obtained by KARE 11 from the 1998 murder of Evelyn Malin, the 84-year-old beaten to death in her rural convenience store. Brian Pippett would be convicted of her murder and sentenced to life behind bars, but always maintaining his innocence.
That I did not commit this crime, for which I have now served 26 years.
He did so again today as he asked the Clemency Review Commission to commute his sentence.
I was not there when she was murdered. I had no involvement whatsoever.
Last year, a bombshell report from the Attorney General's Conviction Review Unit agreed, finding Pippett should be exonerated for the crime. Why? 2 key witnesses, the only thing placing Pippett at the scene, had recanted, and the review unit's experts found the murder couldn't have happened the way prosecutors said. For instance, police believed the killers entered through this basement window, but there were no blood or clothing fibers found on the jagged frame. Look what happens in this BCA recreation obtained by KARE. A man, much smaller than Brian Pippett, struggles and gets caught. And while prosecutors say murderers were drunk and trying to steal beer and cigarettes, crime scene video shows nothing was taken.
Not a single fingerprint, not a hair, no DNA, no footprints. There were footprints all over the place, none of them theirs.
Despite the AG's findings, the Aitkin County attorney has fought Pippett's release, and law enforcement maintains he's guilty. In a written statement today, Evelyn Malin's family also said Pippett should remain imprisoned.
I feel that Brian Pippett should remain incarcerated to serve out the sentence that was imposed in 2001.
Pippett is fighting for his innocence in court, but that could take years. In a 6-1 vote, these commissioners said he should be freed while he fights.
We don't have to find Mr. Pippett innocent, but I believe there is incredibly compelling evidence that he is. And for that, I'm so sorry.
The only no vote on the commission today came from John Harrington, the former BCA commissioner.
Wow,
The next step
fucking
is for the case
Harrington.
to go to the Board of Pardons,
He a
where Governor
bitch.
Walz, AG Keith Ellison, and Chief Justice Natalie
Hudson.
Hudson will decide whether to commute Pippett's sentence and release him from prison.
You know, so I know George, and he's always said that he was innocent, that he never committed the crime. And it was always crazy of like, to me, being in 2025, and there's so many innocent people behind bars. And I feel like we're not fighting for it. We're over here. This the crazy part of it is, right? Is this the same thing that's going on out in Brooklyn Center, same thing that is going on in Minneapolis, Detroit, New York, Chicago. We all fighting the same thing. So why, this is my thing of it is of like, I don't understand. Yes, I do. Shut up, Chaz. You do understand why there's division. Because we can't get to the answer. We can't get to a solution because we have these gatekeepers. And then when you try to go through these gatekeepers, it gets kind of hard because they got political power. You know, you got, just like I'm going to talk about it later on in the show, Bobby Champion. When you have the #3 Democrat, who's probably, I'm not even going to say probably, is dirty as hell. And because we don't have no laws on the books about ethics and about kickbacks, and people just think that is normal, and it's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got a whole community suffering, and this is the crazy thing of it is, and I don't think a lot of people fully understand. We're talking about money, millions. And that can be, you know what I'm saying? That can get people whacked. That can get people hurt. Nobody wants to talk about, you know, I had a conversation this weekend, and people are probably going to be mad. I posted about it. I posted about Major Tops and Clarence Hightower. Here's the thing of it is, man, I want answers. I don't give a fuck about your feelings. You know, because nobody cared about mine. Nobody cared about George Floyd's. Nobody cared about Dante Wright's. Nobody cares about Dalal Aid's. Nobody cares about all the innocent people behind bars. Because I will tell you like this, and I made a post about this morning on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? It really saddened me to see the crowd. There was 2 protests going on, events, rallies, whatever they want to call it, right? We'll call it the 50-51 protest, and then they had the Defend the Guard rally. If you want to comment, if you want to, Robert, and you can talk about this tomorrow, it was crazy of how people were there for Trump and Elon Musk, but to be there for actual change, nobody was really there. You know, the same thing with the Day of Empathy. I've seen that car caravan that they did, and how many cars, so there was supposed to be, I heard the first report, it was like 10,000. Then I seen it was 25,000. And then I seen a report this morning, it was 80,000. And it was like, but then I seen it was AI generated. The pictures, they were photoshopped. Even with the, you know, the crazy thing of it is of like, this is, and I'm gonna reach out to an AI person that I know very well. And I'm gonna ask them, is there any way that they could have altered? Because I'll tell you like this, I put the pictures and the video into an AI generator, and it says, here's the whole thing of it is, like, and other people have done it themselves too. You know, it's just not one person. It's not, these are multiple individuals. And I know a lot of individuals are going to say, well, I don't like their politics, so they're probably lying anyways. And it's like, okay, whatever, man. You lost, bro. Like, we can't even have a conversation with you. So I already see that. Let's go on to the next person. But that is the case, and it's crazy as hell how we are not having individuals come out and say something about that. You know, maybe I did share it. I'm looking through my replies. I don't know why I didn't have it hemmed up for y'all. I should have. Let's see. Damn, I thought I shared that shit. Maybe I took it down. I did that yesterday. I don't know. But there was a whole report. I forgot who did it now. They I don't know. I should be able to go look through my. I thought it was in my replies, maybe, about that. So I don't get that shit. That's a lady from Habitat Humanity. She make a grip of money. Listen to this shit.
Liberal protests. And so I just wanted to come on and talk about my experience, what I had to do to get paid, and how much I got paid. So there were two kind of parts to it. The first was obviously just showing up. They gave me like a time and a place and told me to look for a girl with blue hair and a nose ring, which like I thought would be really hard because I thought like everyone was gonna look like that, but luckily she was the only one. It was really easy to find her. So yeah, that was good. I checked in. They told you that you couldn't wear anything MAGA. They also asked you not to wear red. So I just wore a black t-shirt and jeans. And yeah, I checked in and then they said just like go on the march. And then at the end, there would be like a questionnaire to answer. Oh, and then the other thing is they said they would pay extra if you brought a sign. So I did bring a sign. Again, same thing, like couldn't be MAGA, had to like be in line with like the liberal agenda. So my sign said, everyone deserves a good education, which like I don't necessarily personally agree with. Like if you're gonna be a server or like a mechanic, like you don't really need an education, but I wanted to fit in. I wanted the money.
Right.
And I didn't want to like draw attention to myself, so that's what I went with. So anyways, I went on the march and then at the end I had to check back in and that's when they gave me the questionnaire. And okay, the interesting thing is like you had to answer the questionnaire as if you were a liberal, and there were right and wrong answers. Like it wasn't just like whatever you thought. Like you could get the questions wrong and you had to get them right in order to get paid. At this point, I had already invested like 2 hours of my time, so I wanted the money, you know? So the first question, for example, was why do Republicans want more women to stay home and not work and not have jobs? And again, I just kind of like had to put myself in like their mindset. So I wrote basically like if women don't
This shit
have
crazy. I don't even
jobs or
understand
job
that.
experiences, and they have to rely on
If they
men.
were paid to protest on Saturday, because I know just in Minnesota, there was over 30 protests, about 50, 51. So here is the, like I said, it was in, if you put it in the AI, it told you it was prediction. AI predicted that it was fake and that it was a 91% probability. It was probable. But then it explained why, right? So based on the analysis, like I said, I did this morning. You seen Grok. There are reasons to suspect that this photo may have been altered, likely by AI or digital editing tools. The unusually perfect circular shape of the crowd and the lack of organic variation in its distribution are strong indicators of manipulation. While the lighting, shadows, and surrounding environment appear consistent, modern AI tools can replicate these elements convincingly. However, without access, like I said, and
And I asked the reporter, like, who can we believe? You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand there was a lot of people out there, and I'm not disagreeing that there wasn't. But what I'm saying is that you're having these are mainstream media that AI is saying that's a probable that it was Photoshop. It was touched with. There was things on there that and I don't know nothing about this shit. I'm gonna be honest. I just did what the guy said do, and that's what I did. I put it in there, and it's crazy. After my experiences with Jula Dora and shit, and seeing all these videos of taxis with nobody driving, and I believe it because we're fed to believe a certain narrative that America is not in despair, that we're almighty and we're great, and it's not actually like that. Because we're fucked up, and I don't think a lot of people will actually want to talk about that because there's so much other shit to talk about or discuss, and they would rather want to have that discussion. They want to deflect and distract from getting to the main answer, and that's normal. I mean, I do believe that we're going to keep on going through that. Is people standing in the way of getting to the betterment of our communities, and we have to eradicate them. We have to force them out of the way. So with that being said, I want to get into another story where they're talking about weed rollout in Minnesota, and there will be some issues. And Mark Curran, who's a senator from, I think he's from Maple Grove, North Branch or whatever, is saying that, you know, where they're at legislatively is that weed dispensaries probably won't open up until next year. Even though weed is legal, the reservations have dispensaries. There's restaurants in Minnesota that you can get weed food. You can get, you know, THC, all that shit. But dispensaries will not be open probably until late next year, early next year. So with that being said, here is a KST report.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight at 9. I'm Brett Hoffland.
And I'm Kirsten Swanson. There will not be any recreational marijuana dispensaries open for business in Minnesota until 2026, outside of the few owned by Native American tribes. That's the prediction of a state senator and a marijuana business consultant.
Jay Coles talked with them today and the Office of Cannabis Management. Jay, what's the latest and why the delay?
Well, Brett, you know, the hope was to have dispensaries open sometime in late 2025. But state lawmakers have not yet taken final steps before issuing licenses for recreational marijuana. And because there are no legal rules just yet, experts in the industry say dispensaries statewide will not happen until well into next year. It's almost exactly 2 years since state lawmakers approved recreational marijuana, and late 2025 has been the unofficial target for opening dispensaries statewide. But other than a couple of tribes, dispensaries are not open yet. That's because state lawmakers have not yet approved legal rules for the program.
I mean, it's a big mess, bigger than people realize.
And because licenses won't be issued until sometime in May or June.
Well, that means operators can't faithfully invest in their operation, pick up land, facilities, build out their facilities, buy the equipment they need, and then start the cultivation process.
Which means you might not see a lot of dispensaries for quite some time.
I don't see it happening prior to mid to end summer 2026. Full swing at the earliest.
Stephen Egan helped write Minnesota's adult use marijuana law, and he's consulted cannabis businesses in nearly every state that's legalized weed.
And then it has to go through testing and then product development and product on the shelves. So there's a whole line of things that need to happen post the build out, which is a 6 to 9 month time frame to begin with.
State Senator Mark Curran also worked on the new marijuana law.
You're looking at, in your estimation, a minimum of a year, so that would be early to late spring of next year at the earliest.
That's when I believe it will likely happen, you know, and depending on what the lawsuits look like and how they roll those out, what that could require them to revamp the entire program. I think it will ultimately.
Senator Curran says there are currently 7 lawsuits against the state, and he thinks there will be more.
And legal action could delay it even more.
legal action will certainly delay it more.
In the months of delay heading into 2026, what is Minnesota losing out on in terms of revenue?
Millions and millions and millions of dollars, legal tax money that's currently being distributed and gained within the traditional market or the gray market or black market.
Now, the Office of Cannabis Management did not have anyone available for an interview, but a spokesperson did issue a statement. The OCM did not dispute the timelines from Senator Curran and Stephen Egan, but the spokesperson says there is no definitive deadline, and they have more than 1,000 applicants ready to get started when legislative rules are finally approved.
So people are ready to go. I just don't know if the state of Minnesota is ready for them to go. So are we talking about, damn, we're talking 9 to 12 months to be able to go into a legal dispensary in the state of Minnesota. Wow. Support your local weed, man. I do. Keep on supporting them. It's crazy. I don't understand it. It's wild. and what I don't understand is like, how can they, in my mind, everything that I see going on with this, it's like, how can we make more money? It's not about making sure that making sure that people are okay, because when I look out and I see the school districts, or I see the judicial systems, or I see these programs for homelessness, we're lagging. And I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? The money's there, but it's the motivation, is the intent of these groups or nonprofits to actually make that change, or is it just we're going to be here? Right. I know. Government efficiency. Right. You're right, Robert. It is. It's about government efficiency, and it should be about people efficiency. What is good for the people? It's already legalized. You can smoke it. And I mean, some cities and counties already have laws or ordinances that you can't smoke in certain places. Man, listen, I've been smoking since I was a young buck, and I'm going to continue smoking. I don't care what you say. I smoked in front of police. I mean, I go to city halls and state capitals, and shit, motherfuckers put on cologne. My cologne is weed. I smoke. You know what I'm saying? My best, the crazy thing of it is, what people don't even understand is that most of my best work has came from me when I be high. Because I be in the mood. I be intent. I be like, weed, that's why I be laughing at people. Well, weed makes you lazy. Weed makes you do this. Weed energizes me. Most of the time, it energizes me. You know what I'm saying? There is times where I just want to eat and go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? But other times it is that the weed energizes me. It gives me motivation. It gives me, because I'll tell you like this. Y'all niggas couldn't do this. I watch hours and hours of videos. I read. Y'all couldn't do that. How many people? That's the one I laugh at these people, right? Because they say, why are you so different? That should be obvious. You don't hear people out here talking about city charters. You don't hear people talking about legislation, treaties, because they don't understand it. And that's okay. I'm here to teach. I'm not here to like everybody else. Oh, you got to pay me to learn. No. And here's the crazy thing of it is, I probably put a whole fucking book out on video from shit. I got over like 200 episodes. So if you put them all together and looked at it, it's there. And I'm going to keep on going. And I'm going to keep on making sure that people learn, because, and it's the one thing that I'm glad that Robert is making people see, that it was already here. It was already here. We just haven't thrown enough stones to make people come out of their shells. We haven't thrown enough stones at their glass windows to make it come out. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I feel. That's where I will continually feel. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't matter if people are like, oh, you're being represented by who? Them niggas ain't, man. I know Cedric Frazier ain't me. It's not my people. Just because he is black don't mean he is black. A motherfucker can say anything. They can look anything. That doesn't mean that they're us. because this money is powerful. Niggas will sell their mama, will sell their soul to be able to feel on top. Just like that's what people don't even realize. You look at what's going on in Minneapolis right now in our politics. You have Bobby Champion, Jerry McAfee, all these people, and nobody ever wants to say nothing. That's why I put Clarence Hightower out there. Let's talk about your predator years, my nigga. I don't care if you run the Hennepin County cap. I don't care. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about you being a predator. And that's not a lie. I don't care if you, here's the thing of it is, I don't care how many people come in my inbox sticking up for Jerry McAfee, sticking up for Clarence Hightower, L. Flower. I don't care about none of that. You can have your opinion because it's your opinion. It's your opinion. Mine is I don't like these niggas because they fucked over my community. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. Here's the thing of it is, this is why most times I don't watch the lives in Minneapolis, right? I don't. And I'm gonna be honest, I watched Mason for a little bit and then I cut him off. You know why? Because I can't deal with that wishy-washy ass shit. You either want change or you don't. There is no more sitting on the fucking line of it. You want change or you don't. And to me, a lot of people don't want that change. They still want to put money in their pockets and don't realize that shit's coming to an end. Because everything that I'm talking about, if it's not self-sufficient, I don't want to be handouts every fucking year. Because I'll tell you like this, 21 Days of Peace should be self-sufficient. West Salem Baptist Church should be self-sufficient. Shiloh Temple, all them churches should be self-sufficient. But they beg for handouts. And that's why we see this. Because we make the legislation. FBI, everybody so worried about the fucking FBI. Y'all worried about the wrong FBI. Y'all need to be worried about faith-based initiatives. Faith-based initiatives. Faith-based initiatives. That's the FBI y'all should be worried about. Because I will tell you that the days of the old FBI, in my eyes, is way over with. Right? It's not the same corrupt-ass people. It's not. Even though, Trump got rid of segregation, niggas don't even understand it's boy and girl, and men and women, and not black and white. Because before that law came out, when there was black and white only fountains, come on, man. What other races were in America? We had Native Americans, but they were considered black. They were looked down. Shit. So you probably had some Native Americans, you had some black Americans, and then you had whites. So I'm sure everybody drunk. If you weren't white, you drunk at the black faucet. I don't get that. And people act like it was a long time ago. My dad was alive during that, so it ain't that long ago. Yeah, he old ass nigga, but he ain't that old one. I got a brother that's shit. Anybody that's watching is younger than, is older than, everybody watching. This nigga in preschool, daycare. So I know you know what I'm saying? We know better. And are we going to make it better and prosperous for them? Are we going to sit here and be stubborn like we have been? Because I will tell you like this, people have lost their lives. People have lost their lives. And to be honest, people don't care. A lot of people don't care, right? So I do want to get into the 50-51 hands-off protest a little bit. I do want to go into, was it? There's a lot of allegations. There's a lot of videos that people say that there was a lot of people out there. Well, I don't know, but here you go with KSTP's report. Our 5
The hands-off movement gathering in cities from D.C. to Boston to Berlin, Germany. The demonstrators are drawing attention to what protesters describe as threats to labor rights, democracy, and economic fairness that they say is being driven by President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Here in Minnesota, there were protests in about 30 cities, including St. Paul, the capital, one of the state's largest events, as Minnesotans voiced their concerns. Our Renee Cooper is live for us this evening with the response from the Trump administration and what those protesters are saying. Renee.
Callan, this quiet scene tonight, quite the opposite just a few hours ago. At final count, rally organizers now tell us they tallied about 80,000 people here today. They tell me that's the largest rally since the 2017 Women's March about 8 years ago. This is the view from Chopper 5 Saturday afternoon as a memorable crowd grows outside the state capitol in St. Paul.
Minnesota shows up!
On the ground,
What do we say? Hands up!
booming voices of activists, Democratic politicians, and everyday Minnesotans together.
Hands up!
Criticizing the Trump administration's moves in part to close Social Security offices, scale back protections for transgender people.
I will fight till I am beaten down.
Oh, whatever.
They deserve the safety that
Hold
everyone
on, I
else
want to go
deserves.
back
Cut
about.
thousands of federal jobs.
Right here in Minnesota.
Everyday Minnesotans together.
Hands up!
Criticizing the Trump administration's move
Minnesota shows up!
on the ground.
What do we say? Hands up!
Booming voices of activists, Democratic politicians, and everyday Minnesotans together.
Hands up!
Criticizing the Trump administration's moves in part to close Social Security offices, scale back protections for transgender people.
I will fight till I am beaten down because they deserve the safety that everyone else deserves.
Cut thousands of federal jobs.
Right here in Minnesota, we have roughly 18,000 federal employees who have been impacted.
On February 14th, I witnessed a group of hardworking, high-performing colleagues lose their job under the guise of poor performance. Despite their stellar reviews and achievements. And then it happened to me.
Those stories reaching the ears of state and federal lawmakers from Minnesota, including U.S. House Representative Betty McCollum.
Wow. I feel like I've heard it from all of you. You've been calling the office.
And U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar.
You are breaking the phone lines in the U.S. Senate. Way to go.
In contrast, Elon Musk, a key player in government downsizing efforts, says he's saving taxpayers billions of dollars. And in a statement to the AP responding to protests, the White House said President Trump, quote, will always protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid for eligible beneficiaries. Instead, criticizing Democrats for giving those benefits to, quote, illegal aliens, which will bankrupt these programs and crush American seniors. Rallygoers statewide, including Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison in Duluth, say they're just revving up.
I want people to know that their attorney general, that's me, we've sued now 14 times and we've won every time.
Can't have it. Can't have it. We're here for the people here. So we're going to fight the power and change laws.
Again, those rallies up in Duluth and here in St. Paul, just 2 of about 30 across the state today. And there was one scheduled in all 50 states today.
Right.
Live in St. Paul tonight. Renee.
That's the crazy part. So Defender rally was going on. A Defender Guard rally was going on inside the state capitol. That's not talked about. Rochester had about, let's say 1,000 people show up. Duluth was pretty big. Probably about 500. St. Cloud. But to know that there was 30 protests in the state of Minnesota just for the hands-off shit. But to be honest, that there was 50 in every state. And I mean, there was a lot going on. You had a man that was, so if people don't know about the news, there was an individual that was, if you're on Facebook or whatever, you watch Soup. He was a situation unfolded in Michigan yesterday where an individual was apprehended by the police and he ran from the police and the police shot him. I don't know what to say. I know to me this isn't new. This isn't something that is it's something that continues to happen, and I don't know what to do about it. I don't know if you put it on a reel. Oh, here it goes. Let's see the sound.
They shot him.
Right.
Did they? No, they didn't. Did they shoot him?
So here's the right.
Oh my God. He's got
So
handcuffs
he's got
on.
handcuffs on, and they shoot him.
Okay, that cop's got They a gun. shot him. Did they? No, they didn't. Did
No.
they shoot him?
Mhm. Yeah. So you see the man is in handcuffs, and the police shoot him. They I'm not gonna say he's dead. Damn, 946 comments. Oh shit. Damn, that's a lot. But here is the scene yesterday out in Michigan. He did go out there. I wanted to show a little bit. But yeah, that's what
I don't
the
know,
scene.
Brittany. That's what I'm thinking they did. I don't know for sure. If anybody knows for sure, let me know. 'Cause I don't know. And these police officers, they're not going to tell me anything.
Right.
If I ask them, they'll just tell me to.
We're going through a lot of shit.
It was an Ingham County Sheriff vehicle that was in the video when they shot the guy.
Right. Handcuffed. And it's like, when do we, even with the, everybody's talking about, I shouldn't say everybody, because there's a lot of individuals talking about, I forget his name. I want to say it's Cameron. What is it? Start with a K. Nah, I'm thinking about this kid, and I want to put up his. This is the shit that pisses me off, because now I can't think of the kid's name that did that, the stabbing. But who the hell shared it? Who can I think about who shared it? Because I should have actually just had that on there. Maybe I'll spin it a little bit. Let's see what's trending. He's trending. Stock market crash. He was booming over the weekend. News. Let's see. Now his name starts with a Cameron. What is the boy that got into an altercation? I shouldn't even call it altercation, but there was a stabbing that happened. He was arrested. He was arrested in Texas, and I believe it was a murder. That's what they arrested him on. And there's, everybody's got their own opinion about it. Everybody has their own views on it or whatever. And I will say it like this, is that I don't have any. I just want the truth. If he was defending himself, then it should have been that way. It should have been that he should have definitely been able to stand his ground, because Texas is a stand our ground state. There isn't no, you don't have to retreat. You don't have to, you don't have to do, what the hell is this? Oh, that's the precinct. I don't know the guy's name. I don't know. I'm thinking about so much shit right now. But yeah, that's the type of weekend that we've had in America. We had the hands-off protest this weekend. We had even about all the fraud shit that's still going on. We had the Bobby Champion article come out on Friday, and he came out with a statement. And it's like, damn, do we even really care about, fraud and waste? And do we care about, people's ethics? And do we care about doing the right thing? Or do we only care about people's popularity? I really want to know, is that the only thing that people care about, is popularity? Is popularity. Because that's the way that it seems, is that people only care about what they care about. Right? So $1 million, and I don't want to make this all about Jerry. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, this is wrong being wrong. There isn't no right in this, because in this whole thing of it, you see conflicts of interest. You see, you can't be no street nigga and somebody from the streets, and you look at these contracts, you look at the boards, you look at all this legislation and the legislators, the senators, and how they keep a tight-knit group. How is not giving your money to friends not a conflict of interest? Because to be honest, I think it's not just Bobby. You need to look at a lot of state legislators and senators and see how much money do they give their friends and how much kickbacks do they get. Because I will tell you right now, look at Walls. He like, nigga, stop lying. We know, even her. I think that's Linda Sloan. God damn it. You know what I'm saying? Like, even, I forget, Hussein is his last name, I think it is. Like, come on now. Are we gonna, that's the one thing, like, we have to stand up at some point and be like, wrong is wrong. Wrong is wrong. And I will say like this, Bobby, see, a lot of people will say that, well, he didn't know that he was doing wrong, right? Well, he had guesses about it. And he puts that in an interview. McAfee, in an interview with the Reformer, refused to say whether he paid Champion for his legal services. I won't answer that. Is there something on the books that would prevent me from hiring him as an attorney? So how did you hire him? That, was there some kind of backdoor closed deal? Because this isn't the first time he's done this. He did it with and I'm gonna have Robert on tomorrow to talk about this. The CSI investigation. It wasn't just Bobby Joe Champion. It was Jeff Hayden. And we're going through the same shit because he was an attorney for L. Flowers. So this is not the first time that ethics have came out and be questioned. Because the same thing of how, I'm not sure. Gotta see something. Damn. Wow. It's all shit, man. This shit crazy. I don't understand it. And to be honest, I know it's all over political shit. A lot of it is to do with that. But it's like, how do we as, because I want to show this. This came out just not too long ago. Donald Trump came out with this. He said that yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs. Non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation. Despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the U.S. by issuing additional tariffs would be additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation, will be immediately met with new and sustainability higher tariffs over and above those initially set. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with U.S. will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will be taking place immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Trump has came out, and to be honest, we're going to learn the hard way, I think. You know what I'm saying? I do believe that this is to be honest, I don't know what the fuck it is anymore. A lot of people want to say that he's just like Hitler. To be honest, I think Hitler is a mix. Trump is a mix of different individuals. I think he, and I still have to do some more background search on this, but in my eyes, it's like the Nixon shock, but even a little bit worse. Mixed in with a little bit of Hitler, mixed in there with a little bit of, being a dictator. Because I didn't vote for this, number one. So to be honest, I don't care. I do care, but I don't. Because at the end of the day, it didn't matter if Kamala Harris was in there or if it was Trump. I was going to be happy to be doing something. And it didn't matter if it was, in my eyes, now it's easier to get certain legislation passed because I'm talking to money sensible people. And I want to be sensible. I want to be self-sufficient. I don't want to talk to people that oh, I can teach you how to start a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme. No, I want to be self-sufficient and do it from the mud up. Do it from nothing, because that's what I started from, nothing. And I want to make it to be something. I want to make Minnesota be something, because I'm tired of the direction that we're going. And I seen a post, I think it was Minnesota Crime, they had out asking people, like, what is your plans? What is your plans for the future? Are you going to move out of Minnesota? Are you going to stay here? Are you going to, and to be honest, I answered it. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to whine. I'm going to stay here and fight it out, because that's my whole life. My whole life has been, I wasn't supposed to make it to 18. I made it. I wasn't supposed to make it to 21. I made it. When I hit 25, when I hit 30. So now that I'm about to hit 48, it don't mean shit to me no more. Because to be honest, every day is a blessing, because I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. Every day is a blessing. Every day is a blessing. Every day is a blessing. And that's how I look at it. I don't care how others feel about it. That is to me, and I'm okay with it. And so we got to put the spotlight on Bobby Champion out of Minneapolis. Here's the sitch. He's been pushing a bill that funded violence prevention groups. Sounds good, right? Well, it turns out he used to be their pro bono attorney. That's right. Dude has ties to the same organization. He's now trying to hook up with funding. Conflict of interest? You tell me. Champion says it's all love, all service. But some watchdogs ain't buying it. They're asking, can you really serve the public when you're also looking out for your people? And where's the line between community uplift and insider privilege? And that's what we need to talk about, because where is the line of you trying to uplift your community and you having that insider privilege? And this is where politics and loyalty get messy. And we got to keep our eyes open. We got to. Because if we don't stay on top of this, it will get ahead of us. And there isn't no, because here's the thing of it is, right? And I don't care about, all this bullshit. I just need people that will, and I think I got that team now. I think that we got some bulls that are ready to go. The gloves have been off. You know what I'm saying? There's people that every day getting into it, I shouldn't even say getting into it, but are fighting for change in their own, some behind closed doors, and some are doing it out in the open. I want to make, the whole thing with protesting, going to rallies and doing, that didn't do shit for me. I mean, it was fun. I had a blast. But what kind of change? Because I'm still here fighting the same shit today. The same shit. So I don't understand it. How can we're supposed to be somewhere, but still stuck in the same place? That's what I don't understand. Like, how can you be somewhere, but you're still stuck in the same place? I don't get it. I do not get it, because that's how I feel. I feel like we're at times running in circles. I can see all the old pictures and the old memories of being here or being there, and it's like, okay, I get it. 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 But like, come on, man. How are we supposed to get it? People ain't doing no different. They're doing the same shit, but it's a different day. And ain't nobody really. Here's the thing I will say, right? Is that a lot of individuals say they know different, but they don't do different. They don't know any better. They say they do, but do they do better? I don't believe so. Because we all say it, but do we believe it? And like I said, tomorrow I'm going to have Robert on, and we're going to go through some shit. And people need to, in my eyes, pay attention to that shit. And it's not something that is hard information to understand. It isn't information that I'm here to help you learn, because people help me learn. Not everybody wanted money. You know what I'm saying? That's the one thing that I will say. Not everybody wanted cash. Not everybody. They just wanted to help. Some people wanted to make a difference. So with that being said, man, like tomorrow, like I said, I will be on with Robert. Here's what we're going to talk about. Minnesota mayhem, corruption, collapse, and the clock ticking on a shutdown. Because I do want to talk about that a little bit. That has been a open discussion. And I do have a video. I wasn't going to play it today. I do have a video about the shutdown. And they did bring up some political voices in Minnesota that do writing, like Tom Hauser and that two other ones, Megan Lammer, and I can't forget that. I forgot the other woman's name. But they talk about the shutdown and they talk about how they feel about it. So come join me tomorrow with Robert, Crazy Corpusman, and we'll be on here talking about that. We did talk about a lot of shit today. A lot of shit we talked about. Is a man innocent? Was he framed? You know what I'm saying? Like, the evidence shows that he's innocent. But it sees like, I shouldn't say shows. Actually, it does show. Because it shows that people don't care. You know what I'm saying? We talked about the weed rollout. And then we talked about Capitol crowds and AI smoke screens. And then we also talked about conflict of interest or business. And I showed y'all a little bit between the Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee. Because I do feel like that's important. It is. And I hope people go watch it, because it's out there. We got to stop saying that we want better, but then say, well, I don't know how to go get it, because we do know how to go get it. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a great Monday. We're just kicking off the week. And win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, wish me well. And here you go, Louis Blaze, YFN.
I'm a young fly from the North Star. Ay, ay, just a young fly from the, young fly nigga from the North Star. I'm a young fly nigga from the North. I'm a young fly nigga from the North Star. I'm a young fly. North Star trippin', I be drippin' in that purple rain. They treat me like a prince in my city, you better learn the name. When you get real love from the people, that's more than earning fame. Blaze my own trail, be raising hell when I burn the stage. Took a decade to study fully, had to learn the game. Now I'm stepping out on my bully, do it for Lil Saint. This is for the ones who was pulling me into different lanes. You with me or against me, it get risky if you win away. Sending shots at anyone claiming they got it on lock. Don't give a fuck about your validation, I give my own props. Can't bottle me up with propositions, calling my own shots. Bottom up, play your position right, then you'll be on top. Come to hip-hop, you hardly see us in the conversation. I'ma drop bombs on every coast, I feel the obligation to put my home team on the map, ready for confrontation. Minnesota's with me, we coming to rock the nation. Be reading headlines of people seeing who the best. They only mention names in the South, the East or the West. Raps reaching for the crown, begging and pleading for respect. I'm here to break them all down and keep my knee right on their neck. I'm a young fly nigga from the North Star. Just a young fly nigga from the North Star. I'm a young fly nigga from the North Star. Just a young fly nigga from the North Star. The spirit well alive in Minneapolis. Cut my ties from all the white lies and fake activists. Never die, we multiply with advantages. Outside, we outside, set a fire to your establishment. Just ask the 3rd precinct and see what they think. Always down to slide ride and get it live on Lake Street. We trap right out of the gutter with a motivation to hustle the water in our waves. Something that they came to drink. Young fly nigga from the North. My mind thinking bigger.